Iowa, a state admitted to the Union more than 170 years ago, but shaped by nature for millions of years. Every day, the sun rises on the Mississippi River along Iowa's eastern border. And sets against the Loess Hills and the Missouri River on the western rim. An agricultural state threaded with history, landmarks, cities, towns, tradition, color, wildlife, and rivers of every size and shape. The view from above is the perfect vantage point to rediscover Iowa, land and sky. Funding for Iowa Land and Sky provided by the Gilchrist Foundation, founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief. The Resource Enhancement and Protection Conservation Education Program. Along the western rim of Iowa, an early spring ritual begins. These hills of wind-blown silt, built by an accumulation over millennia, are set for human intervention by a team of trained firefighters. The prairie grasses that coat the Loess Hills are about to be set ablaze. The brown grass of early spring is turned black. But a rejuvenation of the Loess Prairie is just beginning. The controlled burn helps reduce invasive species, restore nutrients to the soil, and boost the coming summer, all to help the Loess Hills turn from brown to black and eventually to explode again with life. Further south, nestled amidst another stretch of Loess soil, sits the city of Council Bluffs, a community resting amidst hills, claiming historical significance from a retired Civil War general and a monumental connection to America's railroads. Along a nearby bluff sits a cemetery dating back to early Mormon settlers and a view of the Missouri River Valley. In 1859, President Abraham Lincoln visited this bluff alongside local resident and future Civil War general Grenville Dodge. Lincoln stood at this overlook peering west to envision a majestic railroad stretching all the way to California. Only 4 years later, Council Bluffs was designated the eastern terminus of the Transcontinental Railroad. A stone obelisk has rested here for more than 100 years, signifying one western Iowa city's brush with presidential history. North along the Missouri River, a familiar flyway has been in use for even longer than the railroads. An oxbow of the Missouri River was created in the mid-1900s and is now known as DeSoto National Wildlife Refuge. And in early spring, it's a haven for hundreds of thousands of snow geese. Traveling north for the summer months along the Missouri River Flyway, this pit stop may only last a few days of busy traffic. But for human visitors, the images will last far longer. In the meantime, up to 500,000 migrating waterfowl may be passing through each day. In mid-fall, one of the most photographed stretches of the Loess Hills is here at Preparation Canyon State Park near Moorhead, Iowa. Named for a former Mormon settlement community dubbed Preparation by its followers, who deem their existence here as merely preparation for the world to come. The rolling hills and sunset views of the Missouri River Valley have been a state park since the 1930s. Iowa's towns are often anchored by the structures on Main Street. In Clarinda, the current Page County Courthouse was built in 1887, costing merely $86,000 at the time. Exhibiting a combination of Gothic Revival and Italianate design, Clarinda's courthouse is adorned with classic red brick and limestone trim. In the neighboring southwest Iowa town of Red Oak, its county courthouse exhibits an entirely different era. Built in 1891 for $100,000, this Victorian Romanesque building was outfitted with an array of towers, turrets, and a rich maroon veneer, all defining Red Oak's downtown for more than 120 years. In the extreme southwest corner of Iowa, the Missouri River winds its way past the Hawkeye State and towards Missouri. Only a few miles from the river's banks juts the unique topography of the Loess Hills. 20,000 years ago, river sediment dried in the valley, and westerly winds deposited the silt into these signature hills, now covered with trees. Here at the southern tip of the Loess Hills rests Waubonsee State Park, named for Chief Waubonsee of the Potawatomi tribe. Nearly 2,000 acres stretch out along ridgelines, terraces, and a sprawling view of fall color. Established in 1926, this state park reaches elevations of 1,099 feet before plunging back to the lowlands of the Missouri River Valley. In the rolling hills of western Iowa, fall brings long days and nights for farmers crisscrossing the hills in their combines. In nearby Ida Grove, the rolling hills of Ida County continue. The hometown of former Governor Harold Hughes was incorporated in 1878 and named after Mount Ida in Greece. Its motto is the Castle Town for its seemingly out-of-place structures. In the mid-20th century, a local multimillionaire industrialist commissioned a series of buildings, welcome signs, and golf course drawbridges in the mold of his beloved Renaissance castles. Even the local newspaper offices were turned into a castle, giving Ida Grove its own personality on the rolling hills of western Iowa. In west central Iowa, the small town of Templeton rests in relative rural obscurity, with one barrel-sized exception. The town's signature rye whiskey, now produced and marketed here in Templeton, dominates a horizon of wind turbines and grain elevators as nearby farmers drop off their harvest bounty. Iowa's rural county roads crisscross the state at a regular mile-by-mile rate. But near Brayton, a peculiar roadblock has rested for decades. A 100-foot cottonwood tree hinders traffic in all directions and brings with it a local legend. The tall tale dates back 150 years, when a local surveyor was marking the line between Cass and Audubon counties. Legend has it that his only tool was a cottonwood sprout in his pocket. The legend and the tree still mark this corner of rural Iowa. Along the northern section of the Missouri River's path in Iowa rests the largest city in our state's northwest, Sioux City. Bordering Nebraska and South Dakota, Sioux City has grown since its days as a haven for fur trappers in the 18th century. As the Missouri River winds south, the region's pivotal history is remembered. Atop a nearby bluff sits the Sergeant Floyd Monument. More than 200 years ago, the Lewis and Clark expedition passed this western Iowa bluff where Sergeant Charles Floyd perished. He was the only member of the famed expedition to die on the journey west. A permanent monument was built 100 years later, in 1901. And 100 years since its construction, the moniker still stands over the Missouri River Valley. Near Sioux City, at the northern tip of the Loess Hills, the Broken Kettle grasslands stretch over 3,000 acres and encompass the largest remaining prairie in Iowa. Steep and rugged ridges roll on for miles and are home to the largest land mammal in North America, the American bison. "28 bison were introduced to Broken Kettle in 2008. Their numbers have swelled to 200 a decade later. This wandering herd reminding Iowans what the open prairie may have resembled just centuries ago. In the far northwest corner of Iowa, bordering South Dakota to the west and Minnesota directly north, is Gitche-Manitou State Preserve. The small patch of natural prairie is home to Sioux quartzite outcroppings, the oldest surface bedrock in Iowa. The quartzite, visible from above, is roughly 1.6 billion years old. Near the Minnesota border in northwest Iowa is a seemingly familiar sight, a farmhouse and barn. But this is no ordinary location. Here at Hawkeye Point sits commemoration of the highest natural elevation in our entire state. No bluff or mountain visible here in Osceola County, but the 1,670-foot elevation is clearly marked. And the view is uniquely Iowan. One town in northern Iowa hosts one of the most unique man-made structures in the entire state. More than 100 years ago in West Bend, a Catholic priest recovering from a near-death experience began stockpiling rocks and precious stones. He painstakingly created the Grotto of the Redemption, a collection of minerals and petrified pieces depicting scenes in the life of Jesus. Year-round construction of the 9 grottos lasted 42 years. More than a century after construction began, the grotto brings an estimated 100,000 visitors to the small town of West Bend every year. The Iowa Great Lakes in Dickinson County are the lasting legacy of glacial melting 13,000 years ago. The lakes we affectionately refer to as Big Spirit and Okoboji are glacial potholes, remnants of the last ice age. When winter returns to the Iowa Great Lakes, the views are equally magnificent. The tourist mecca of Arnold's Park shuts down in the freezing temperatures, but Iowans always seem to make their way north and back to the Iowa Great Lakes every summer. back along the western rim of Iowa is perhaps our state's best sunset overlook. Along a signature outcropping of the Loess Hills near Little Sioux is one of the most photographed scenes in the Missouri River Valley. Murray Hill Scenic Overlook provides a commanding view of the hills to the north and south, the scenic byway below, and the river valley beyond. In a farm field near Marathon, Iowa, the headwaters of the North Raccoon River begin. Farm tiling lines and a man-made channel has turned this former marshy topography into productive farmland. The North Raccoon's journey turns south, passing through Buena Vista County and Storm Lake. The more than 200-mile flow south encompasses 9 counties and river forks near Redfield and Van Meter before arriving in Iowa's most populous city, Des Moines. The Raccoon River merges with the Des Moines River near downtown in a city originally named Fort Des Moines for a settlement at this river fork. The confluence of these major river systems played a crucial role in the development of the capital city, and the Raccoon River remains the primary source of drinking water for more than 600,000 central Iowans. Sitting atop a hill west of downtown Des Moines rests a 150-year-old mansion originally dubbed a castle among cornrows, but known officially as Terrace Hill. When built, this structure was on the western edge of Iowa's capital city, but now resides in the city's center. Built by Iowa's first millionaire as a family home in the 1860s, it was sold to the Hubble family of Des Moines, whom remained owners for the next century when it was donated to the state of Iowa. Since 1976, Terrace Hill has been the official residence of the governor of Iowa. Its 90-foot tower offers a commanding view of the nearby skyline. A golden dome dominates the horizon in Des Moines. Coated with thin sheets of 23-karat gold and re-gilded in the late 1990s, the dome was built for a relative bargain of $2.8 million in the 1880s after 15 years of construction. Iowa's original capital was built in Iowa City, but 19th century lawmakers deemed a new building should be moved further west and to a location within 2 miles of the confluence of the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers. An additional 4 domes adorn the corners of the State House, making Iowa's structure the only 5-dome capital in the United States. Its location on a hill east of Des Moines downtown offers panoramic views from atop the Golden Dome. More than 1 million visitors flock to the Iowa State Fairgrounds every year. The Grand Concourse, the Sky Glider, the Big Slide, all familiar images for Iowans. A tradition dating back to 1886 at its current location on the east side of Des Moines, and pausing only for a brief few years during World War II. The Iowa State Fair spreads out over 450 acres. Plenty of room for deep-fried Twinkies, butter cows, big boars, pork chops, and 1 million fellow fairgoers. Along the Des Moines River in Fort Dodge, an abandoned silo has become the state's largest canvas for public art. In late 2018, an Australian artist began painting a commissioned 4-sided mural based on photos of local Iowans. From atop his 110-foot silo, Guildo van Helten spent weeks laboring over his latest giant portrait, one of many he has created across the globe. And the results in Fort Dodge are mesmerizing. In the 21st century, no image has transformed the horizon of rural Iowa more than wind power. In north-central Iowa, the expansion of wind turbines continues. Crews utilize massive cranes to lift equipment, trained personnel, and 100-foot-long blades to bring the latest technology online. In Winterset, Iowa, the international reputation of the bridges of Madison County date back more than a century ago. Originally built in the 1880s, there were once 19 covered bridges in Madison County. Today, 6 bridges remain after 140 years of demolition, upkeep, replacement, and arson. The red-splashed symbols of rural America were immortalized in a national best-selling novel and major motion picture in the 1990s. Iowans continue to explore the half-dozen bridges that remain. In south-central Iowa, near Sheraton, one state park explodes in color every spring. Thousands of redbud trees surround the lakes and ponds at Red Haw State Park. They often reach peak bloom in late April, while parkgoers and fishermen are drawn out from their winter slumber. Across 650 acres, Iowans have traipsed around this state park for a colorful and seasonal rite of passage. Across the southern Iowa prairie, one conservation oasis has reintroduced a once common creature to the landscape. At Kellerton Grasslands, a protected group of prairie chickens assemble at dawn for an annual mating ritual. On a prairie spot known as a leck, male prairie chickens battle for dominance to impress their female counterparts. Even in super slow motion, the encounters last only seconds. Dozens of prairie chickens are all that remain in a state once dominated by prairie habitat before the advent of modern farming practices. But the early spring rituals help keep this longtime Iowa bird around for future generations. Every summer in Iowa since the 1970s has brought visitors from across the country for a cycling pilgrimage amongst the corn rows known as Ragbri. Riding from the Missouri River east to the Mississippi River, riders cross an average 460 miles each year, largely through rural agricultural communities. Thousands of spandex-clad cyclists descend on small towns with a fraction of the population. This sun-drenched annual tradition has become the oldest, largest, and longest bike touring event in the world. In central Iowa, 2 towering bridges rise over the Des Moines River Valley near Boone. One is the original Kate Shelley Bridge, finished in 1901 and named for a local woman who risked her life to save a passenger train from crossing a failed bridge during an 1881 thunderstorm. At the dawn of the 20th century, her life-saving bravery sparked commemoration at one of the highest and longest double-track railroad bridges in the nation. More than 100 years later, a modern concrete bridge now carries freight trains across the 2,600-foot chasm, connecting routes from Chicago to the West Coast. Designers wisely chose to leave this piece of Iowa history standing. Further south along the Des Moines River Valley, a former train bridge has been transformed into a signature Iowa destination. Rising 13 stories high and a half-mile long, the High Trestle Bridge is a centerpiece of Iowa's expansive recreational trail system and has quickly become a statewide symbol. Steel portals were designed to resemble descending into a coal mine and helps transform the recreation bridge into a 130 feet tall work of art. From year to year, river levels can fill the valley below and create an entirely different experience. In east central Iowa, the skyline in Marshalltown is dominated by the Marshall County Courthouse. A 2.5-story limestone structure built in 1886 completes the image of a quintessential Iowa town square. Its central clock tower stood for 132 years, with the threat of disrepair being its greatest challenge. Only weeks after Iowa Public Television captured these images, an EF3 tornado ripped through downtown Marshalltown. Peak winds of 144 miles per hour destroyed buildings and ripped the spire off the courthouse. In the tornado's wake, city officials plan to rebuild the Marshalltown Courthouse stronger than ever before. In southeast central Iowa, a restored prairie stretches across 8,600 acres. The Neil Smith Wildlife Refuge is only 30 years old, but its goal was to take this Iowa soil backwards more than a century ago to a habitat of tallgrass prairie and oak savanna. This expansive landscape was largely farmland in 1990, but now is restored prairie, complete with native elk and bison. In Marion County, a community founded by immigrants from the Netherlands holds one of Iowa's most iconic festivals. In spring, Pella's Tulip Time Festival is a celebration of Dutch heritage, complete with a fully functional 1850s-style windmill, the tallest working windmill of its kind in the country. Tulips, wooden shoes, and daily parades have established Pella as an annual Iowa destination. Only a few miles west, Lake Red Rock is a 12,000 square mile reservoir dammed in 1969 to control the Des Moines River. The lake's signature observation deck, Cordova Tower, provides a nearly drone's eye view of the largest lake in Iowa. Sandstone cliffs line the lake, formed over millions of years as stacked sandbar deposits from river flows hardened and compacted. In central Iowa, along the Des Moines River, sits a valley of abundant color every fall. Ledges State Park is dominated by a sandstone gorge with cliffs carved during the last ice age. The gorge descends 100 feet in various locations, and its valley is known to fill with river water during Iowa flood events. Established as a state park in 1924, Iowans continue to find it a year-round hiking and visiting destination. In north-central Iowa, Clear Lake is a popular destination in Cerro Gordo County. Best known to history for its surf ballroom, which hosted the final fateful performance of Buddy Holly in 1959. As Clear Lake freezes during winter, an annual aerial spectacle appears on the horizon. The Color the Wind Kite Festival brings thousands of Iowans back to the lake in frigid temperatures as elaborate 100-foot kites fly above. Amidst a sea of fall color, an old-fashioned form of transportation still brings Iowans through the Des Moines River Valley. In fall, the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad runs 1920s-era coach cars over bridges, past towns, and through a forested river valley. While the Des Moines River begins its 500-mile journey in southern Minnesota and eventually flows into the Mississippi River, this stretch in central Iowa is one of its most scenic. Funding for Iowa Land and Sky provided by the Gilchrist Foundation, founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief. The Resource Enhancement and Protection Conservation Education Program. In northeast Iowa, the most scenic stretch of the upper Iowa River meanders past 100-foot bluffs. For more than 150 miles, this river system slashes through Howard, Winneshiek, and Allamakee counties before merging into the Mississippi River. At Iowa's Chimney Rocks, these high-walled canyons are unique in the state to the driftless region of the upper Midwest. Unlike most rivers in Iowa, these rock formations were left behind in the driftless, an area in far northeast Iowa left unplaned from glaciers during the last ice age. The results are the most wild, scenic, and undeveloped river route in Iowa. The upper Iowa River flows south to Decorah, a town only 15 miles south of the Iowa-Minnesota border. With strong Norwegian culture and heritage, Decorah has become a northeast Iowa outdoor recreational mecca for paddlers and cyclists. It's also home to world-famous bald eagles at the Decorah Fish Hatchery, a location dating back to the Civilian Conservation Corps of the 1930s. The Decorah Fish Hatchery produces enough fish annually to stock dozens of lakes and streams across Iowa. Every year, 150,000 trout are produced and reared here. Ample numbers for their nearby Decorah eagle neighbors, whose nest has been an internet streaming sensation for a decade, and whose next meal is never in doubt. Along a rugged stretch of Mississippi River bluffs rests the Mines of Spain near Dubuque. This one-time Spanish-owned land was mined until the early 1900s. The state recreation area is best known for the Julian Dubuque Monument, high atop a panoramic view of the river valley. The founder of Dubuque, Julian, was a French-Canadian who traded with local Indian tribes in the late 1700s. His final resting place is here on the same bluff, forever overlooking an Iowa city with his namesake. In downtown Dubuque, the river landing community's skyline glistens with its county courthouse. This city along the Mississippi River resides at the tri-corner apex of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Along the Mississippi River in Burlington, one street has claimed an international reputation. This is Snake Alley in downtown Burlington. built in 1894 by 3 German immigrants intent on replicating vineyard paths commonly seen in France and Germany. Descending down the river town's hilly topography, Snake Alley was built with limestone and blue clay bricks. The windy path encompasses 1,100 degrees of turning radius over 200 feet in length. Its unique design led to a mid-20th century moniker still advertised today, the crookedest street in the world. Despite its historic significance, Snake Alley remains open to the public for their own driving adventure. West of the Mississippi River Valley in Jones County, Iowa, lies a community along the Wapsipinicon River. The region's limestone was quarried to build Anamosa State Penitentiary, a 150-year-old infamous prison once dubbed the White Palace of the West. Anamosa and its surrounding hillsides provided artistic inspiration for hometown legend Grant Wood. The famous Iowa artist of work such as American Gothic, Wood's final resting place overlooks the Wapsipinicon River and the beautiful valley beyond. In southeast Iowa, at one of the widest sections of the Mississippi River, is one of our first outposts, Fort Madison, named for our 4th President of the United States, James Madison. 1 year after Iowa became a territory, the historic Iowa State Penitentiary was constructed in 1836. At the time, our nation was only 57 years old, and this structure stood for 2 decades prior to the Civil War. For nearly 2 centuries, this compound held inmates just blocks away from downtown Fort Madison, and has served as the oldest continually used prison west of the Mississippi River. Today, this structure is empty. State prisoners reside at a maximum security prison further west, above the river Bluffs. Back above the Mississippi River Valley, this trading route is still used by grain barges. Fort Madison's history as a permanent U.S. military fortification still rests in a structure along the river banks. In eastern Iowa's Clayton County, a massive 15-foot fiberglass strawberry designates the small town of Strawberry Point. This town serves as a gateway to the oldest state park in Iowa. A few miles away, Backbone State Park is an island of trees and water amongst an ocean of farm fields. The park was named for a narrow ridge of bedrock known as the Devil's Backbone, carved by a loop of the Maquoketa River and left untouched by glaciers 13,000 years ago. Established in 1919, Backbone State Park's history is intertwined with the CCC, a federal Great Depression work relief program. Young Iowa boys in the Civilian Conservation Corps built dams, hiking paths, and the park's signature boathouse in the 1930s and 40s. Iowans still enjoy them nearly a century later. Along the Cedar River in eastern Iowa is our state's second largest city, Cedar Rapids. For decades, the downtown Veterans Memorial Building served as a city hall on the water. Adorned with a golden flame, the planning for this structure began nearly a century ago. At the time, only 3 places in the world could claim their government offices were on an island: Paris, France, Osaka, Japan, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But the floods of 2008 changed Cedar Rapids forever. The Cedar River flooded downtown, the neighboring Czech Village, and surrounding neighborhoods. More than a decade later, the community has rebuilt. Towering over the southern horizon is a hill known to locals as Mount Trashmore. The city's landfill for 50 years was reopened to fill with flood debris. Adding the demolished neighborhoods of Cedar Rapids to the pile, Mount Trashmore grew an additional 30 feet on the horizon. Local officials have since capped the landfill and created the city's signature recreation trail overlook, with a view of the Cedar River and the City of 5 Seasons beyond. Near Mount Vernon along the Cedar River, a nearly century-old state park provides dramatic views. "840 acres of hardwood trees, deep ravines, and river bluffs surround Palisades-Kepler State Park. Established in 1922, the park has affectionately been known as the Palisades for Iowans in search of reprieve from daily life along the picturesque Cedar River. In far northeast Iowa, the Mississippi River town of Lansing sparkles at sunrise. Nestled firmly into the driftless regions of this valley, Lansing's river bluffs are a commanding presence at the river's edge and from high above. These bluffs are home to peregrine falcons. Once nearly wiped out by the pesticide DDT, these raptors were reintroduced to their historic eyries on the Mississippi in the 1990s by the Raptor Resource Project and conservationist Bob Anderson. Still today, experienced teams descend these bluffs to monitor specially built peregrine nests, and then ban the baby falcons for further study. fastest animal on the planet, peregrine falcons can rapidly descend at rates exceeding 200 miles per hour, and they've returned to soar above northeast Iowa and the Bluffs. In east-central Iowa, a collection of 7 villages is known as the Amana Colonies. In the mid-1800s, German immigrants fleeing religious persecution settled into Iowa County farmland to build self-sufficient communities. They hand-built churches, schools, bakeries, and shops, many of which still stand today. For 80 years, the Amana Colony maintained a nearly self-sufficient economy and community before becoming one of Iowa's most visited heritage tourism locations in the 20th century. In Scott County, Iowa, the largest of the region's Quad Cities is Davenport. Nestled right along the banks of the Mississippi River, Davenport has a rich history of riverside music festivals, road races, and seasonal flooding. Davenport is located at an apex of crisscrossing interstates, railroad traffic, and the constant economic commerce of river barges. The arches of the Centennial Bridge from Davenport to Rock Island, Illinois, symbolize each of the Quad Cities. In northeast Iowa's Allamakee County, one of our state's most iconic forests bursts with fall color. The 8,500-acre Yellow River Forest sits on Iowa's Paleozoic plateau, untouched by glacial activity thousands of years ago. It hosts the only fire tower in Iowa, in a state with few forests and ample farmland. Yellow River Forest is one of Iowa's top fall hiking destinations, and the views speak for themselves. At the end of summer every year, Mount Pleasant hosts one of Iowa's throwback traditional festivals. In southeast Iowa's Henry County, the annual Old Threshers Reunion brings thousands of visitors and thousands more antique tractors. To honor a bygone era, functioning antique steam-powered engines roar to life. Iowans have continued the Old Threshers reunion for nearly 70 years and keep finding reasons to take one more look at vintage tractors. On the Mississippi River in Jackson County, a one-of-a-kind Iowa town is surrounded by water. Cibola is Iowa's only island city. The name Cibola is French for sand, in reference to the sandy soil that encompasses the 500-person town. Cibola wasn't always an island city. In 1939, the Mississippi River Dam near Clinton, Iowa, raised the water levels here and permanently submerged lowland area west of town. Leaving Cibola attached to Iowa by narrow roads and train tracks. At the extreme southeast corner of Iowa, sunrise on the Mississippi can be magical. Keokuk rests at the small tail on the bottom right of Iowa, and it symbolizes the end of the road for many of Iowa's waterways. At the edge of this river town defined by barges and railroads, the confluence of the Des Moines and Mississippi rivers finally merge. It's here where nearly 3/4 of Iowa's collective waterways finally pass beyond our borders. A state defined by rivers, towns, history, landmarks, tradition, color, and wildlife. In their own way, each and every landscape and landmark define our state and make up the spectacular view of Iowa land and sky.